Hi everyone, John here from All Miniatures Great and Small, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about list building. I've mentioned in a couple of other videos that I'm preparing for a Flames of War event in January in Mesa, Arizona called Shifting Sands. I'll put a link down in the video description below. Basically, it's an annual themed tournament, so it's kind of half tournament, half thematic historical event. So it's not like your standard cutthroat tournament. You are playing specific lists always against your historical opponent. So typically you won't see any blue on blue. As Americans, I'm not going to be fighting British or other Americans, hopefully. So that being said, I thought I would talk a little bit about list building and some of the thoughts that went into building my list. And maybe that will help some gamers out there, particularly new gamers, to Flames of War when they look at list construction. So, first things first is my list is here out of Fighting First. I like playing Americans, so I'm glad that the Fighting First book was out and I could get the Americans on the table. So, that is really one of the first decisions you need to make in list building is what side you want to play. When you're talking about mid-war, you have currently three options. You have British, Germans, Americans, hopefully Italians very soon. But so you need to choose what option. Now, cutthroat tournament players might look at the overall meta, look at the overall strong lists, and kind of choose their faction based on that. I didn't do that. I choose my faction because I like playing and painting American forces. So that was the deciding factor in what I was going to do. Now, once I've decided what force I took, then I had to make a choice. So in Fighting First, you can build many different formations or companies. You can have a Sherman company, a Lee company, a Stuart company, armored rifles, a regular rifle company, and an M10 tank destroyer company. So in version 4, you can even take multiple formations. You could take a rifle company and a Stuart company if you have enough points to do that. But what I decided to do was go with an M3 Lee tank company. So why did I go with the M3 Lee? Well, first and foremost, I love the Lee. I think it's a cool looking tank. The Sherman is also a great tank, but I have 12 billion Shermans in my late war army. I didn't feel like building more mid-war Shermans, and then my mid-war list feels just like my late war list in a lot of ways. So with the Lee, it gives me something unique to the mid-war that was American, and gives me a tank that's pretty decent. So that was my first decision, was I am going to build a M3 Lee company. So with 100 points, you've got a lot of options. So one of the important things with version 4 Flames of War is knowing how to win your games. Or, more importantly, how not to lose your games. One of the ways to lose a game, obviously, is to your opponent completes gets the objective, whatever that mission is. But the other way to lose a game is to have all of your formations break. So a formation breaks if it has less than 2 units in what's called good spirits, basically good morale. And a unit is like a HQ unit or a unit of Lees. So when you build your list, you have to keep that in mind. Am I building something that's really fragile? Can it take a few losses and still function on the table, or is it going to fold my formation and the game's going to be over? So that was a big consideration. So, and that's also a consideration why I only went with one formation instead of multiple formations. 2 formations, let's say Stuarts and rifles, it might be very easy then to break the Stuart company, have them run away, leaving you with half an army. So with this in mind, I built a Lee company. Now, my Lees, I started with one in the HQ, a platoon of 5 Lees, and a platoon of 5 Stuarts. So those are the primary units in my army. Now, in addition to those units, I also have some other units in my formation that aren't kind of my heavy hitters. Really, I'm expecting a lot from these guys, and a lot of my points are here. Alright, so to go over what I built into my formation, I have an HQ Lee. Now each Lee runs base 5 points, and I upgraded the gun in the hull to a long gun, which increases it by 1 point. So each one of my Lees, all of them are upgraded, cost 6 points. So you can imagine here, I've got 30 points worth of Lees. You know, that's almost a third of my army right there in those 5 Lees. So my formation though, I've got 1 HQ Lee, 1 platoon of 5 Lees, again all with the 75mm long gun upgrade, and 5 Stuarts. Also in the formation, however, I've got a armored recon patrol, so that's 2 armored cars and 2 jeeps. I've got 81mm armored mortars and armored 75mm assault gun platoon. That's my core formation, so I have 6 units. HQ, 2 tank platoons, and then these 3 guys in the back. That's 6 units in my core formation, so I'm going to have to lose 4 of these units before my formation breaks. So that means that even if I lose all of my tanks, if I keep some of these guys in the back hidden or safe, my formation's not going to run away. Particularly, 2 of my core formations are artillery. The 75mm assault guns and the 81mm mortars. They should not be out, hopefully, getting shot at very much in the game. So those guys are kind of the anchor for this formation to keep them in the game. Now, rounding that out, then I have some additional units that are support units. So these are other things I can add to my list, but they do not count towards the morale of my main formation. So the first thing I did was I added some M10 tank destroyers, a platoon of 3. Now I can do that because any formation in the book, in the Fighting First book, lets me add a combat unit from another formation as a support unit. So since the M10s are another formation, and this is a combat unit or a core unit in that formation, I can add it as support to my formation. So by adding these 3 M10s, each one of these runs a pricey 8 points, I can add those to it. Now the nice thing about this is these M10s, my opponent probably will hate them and gun for them and kill them. Even if he does, their loss doesn't impact the morale of my core formation. So I can lose the M10s, I'm still good formation wise. The other thing I'm adding is a flight of P40s. So I've got my P40s. These guys are another, again, support formation, so losing them in the grand scheme of things is not that big. I realize air is not reliable and probably not desirable. If I was building a purely competitive list, I might leave these guys out. But 1, I love the P40, and 2, I kind of like the idea that these guys will zoom in. Even though it's a 50-50 shot, they arrive on the board, they can tear something up. German martyrs, I'm looking at you. The other thing that I don't have on the table, because they're still on the painting table, is a platoon of rifle platoon. Now, depending on how I go with points, I might go armored rifle or just a regular rifle platoon. Still haven't decided that yet, but as we get closer to the event, I'll let you guys know. So that's a little bit of kind of my thought process in building my list as far as the formation and the support goes. I do want to mention, even though I don't have it on the table, that I do find infantry to be an essential component to this. And the reason why is you never know what kind of board you're going to have. Infantry can really work well if you have cities or buildings that you need to take or hold. Tanks cannot assault infantry in buildings, so it's something nice to have. So either way, I'm going to have at least one platoon of infantry, armored rifles or rifles, going along with this group. So, that said now, why did I pick the units that I picked? Well, a lot of it has to do with, again, like units I like, the Lees. I also knew that I'm going to be facing just Germans. I'm not going to be facing British. So when I'm building my list, I don't have to worry about things like, I don't have to worry about Honey Stewart's spam or Crusader spam or anything like that I might face against the British or other things. So I have to look at my opponent, the Germans, and what they're going to bring. Really, the Germans have two flavors of lists. They're either going to take tank or they're going to take infantry. So knowing that Americans mostly have machine guns on everything, I'm not too worried about infantry. Now that said, they can cause you a lot of problems in the mission, and I might still lose, but I'm not worried about them that much. Tanks, I want to make sure I can deal with tanks. Now the Germans can take all the way from a Panzer II to a Tiger. So they have a wide range of tanks you might face, but the majority of their tanks are going to be Panzer IIIs. And a Panzer III is very similar to a Lee, except that they're harder to hit. But so I wanted to make sure I'd accounted for that. So knowing that I'm going to be facing potentially Panzer IIIs and a good number of them, 3, 6, 8 Panzer IIIs maybe in a list, I want to make sure I have enough anti-tank firepower for that. So that's what my Lees are for, and it's also what the M10s are for. I also know that I might see the odd Tiger here and there, and I've mentioned it before. Americans don't have a lot of tools to deal with the Tiger, but one of those tools is the M10 tank destroyer. With an anti-tank of 12, it can threaten a Tiger. A Tiger can't move with impunity. The chances of penetrating aren't that great, but at least it's a chance. So the M10s are in some ways my counter or my answer to a Tiger. The other answer to the Tiger would be an armored rifle platoon or infantry platoon that could keep it tied up. Now, I went with Stuarts instead of a second platoon of Lees because of the speed. Stuarts are faster. They're also cheap. Those 5 Stuarts cost 10 points, so they're not bad. So that was the reason there. But overall, knowing what to expect in your enemy or what the enemy could potentially bring can help you decide what you're going to bring to counter that. So there you go, guys. That is maybe part 1 of an ongoing series. Let me know if you like this kind of video. I can certainly do more of it if you guys want. Talk about more list building ideas, strategy, and tactics. So let me know down in the comments below if you'd like to see more of this kind of video. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. As always, you can check us out on Facebook at All Miniatures Great and Small. We'd appreciate it if you hopped over there and gave us a like. Until then, thanks for watching, and keep on wargaming.